You know the names Andy Warhol, Jackson Pollock, Vincent van Gogh, Claude Monet, and Leonardo da Vinci. Not surprising, given their incredible contributions to the world of art. And yet, you probably don't know the name Cassius Marcellus Coolidge, despite a series of paintings by the American artist arguably being some of the most well-known, iconic paintings of all time, with one of them fetching $658,000 at auction in 2015, and art critic Annette Ferreira declaring that the paintings are indelibly burned into the American collective schlock subconscious. So, no, you might not know Coolidge by name, and you might not even know the specific names of each of his paintings, but you know his work, an oeuvre that collectively came to be known as Dogs Playing Poker. Created between 1894 and 1910, Dogs Playing Poker is the informal name for a series of oil paintings which depict dogs performing human actions, including playing baseball and pool and dancing. But of course, the most famous paintings in the series are the 11 which depict dogs seated around a card table playing poker. The 11 poker paintings were part of a series of 18 anthropomorphized animal paintings that Coolidge was commissioned to create by the St. Paul, Minnesota company Brown and Bigelow in 1903 as part of a promotional campaign for cigar sales. But the tobacco-infused origins of Dogs Playing Poker is largely forgotten today, as the paintings quickly took hold as a staple of kitsch art and home decorations. Over the years, the paintings have been consistently reproduced and sold commercially, and have been featured, parodied, and paid homage to in numerous TV series and films such as The Simpsons, Cheers, Animaniacs, and former failure-to-franchise feature The Thomas Crown Affair. It was even the inspiration for Dog City, an hour-long 1989 episode of The Jim Henson Hour, which featured the characters as puppets, and was later spun off into the 3-season animated series Jim Henson's Dog City. Yet, despite all this, and despite modern-day Hollywood's undeniable obsession with IP, surprisingly there has yet to be a Dogs Playing Poker feature film. Though certainly, movie audiences seeking the comedic or cute charms of anthropomorphized animals have still certainly not suffered from a lack of that representation, as animals acting like humans have long been a staple of animated and live-action family films. Humans clearly enjoy seeing animals act like them, which helps explain the popularity of Coolidge's work, and also explains why anthropomorphized animals remain an easy go-to element for any family film looking for easy audience connection. Maybe it even explains why one studio was eager to revive a not long dormant IP for a new go, even if this time the extreme level of the animal's anthropomorphic behaviors would perhaps be slightly new for the classic tale. The year is 2020, and Universal Pictures are ready to release a brand new cinematic adaptation of a classic kids' literary series, and in the process hopefully launch a new generation's version of an enduring franchise with Dolittle. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And I'm Chris in Bird.
Oh, not even like a specific bird, just overall bird.
Just Bird.
Yeah. You know, I have to say, as someone who is in the process of trying to potty train and just overall train a new puppy, there was like, at least, you know, there's some elements of this movie today where I was like, I get it, man. I wouldn't mind having that ability, you know?
Yeah. And then you'll show your ability, and then you'll find the dog playing cards in the corner, even though you have the ability. And the
okay. Well, hold on. We'll get there. First, we should clarify again for those who just as a reminder, this is the finale of our June theme. June is what the doctor ordered. Where we have been looking at all Doctor-themed, to a degree, movies. Although, you know, we're like a little break from tradition here. This one, oddly enough, does not have Doctor in the title. Because the character is just so iconic they didn't even need to deal with it. Yeah. And that is, we are looking at 2020's Dolittle. Chris, why don't you tell the audience about Dolittle? Because chances are, they've already forgot this movie happened.
But it surprisingly made a lot of money. So,
yeah. We'll talk about it. Yeah.
We'll talk about it. Okay.
That's exactly what we're here to do, actually.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But this is directed by Stephen Gaghan. He directed Syriana, Gold, starring Matthew McConaughey.
He wrote Traffic because that's kind of that makes sense. I remember when they talked about making a new Dr. Dolittle movie. I said, you know who they should get? They should get that guy who wrote Traffic. Mm-hmm. And directed Syriana. That was like my first thought. So.
Yeah. No. Same here.
Yeah.
Well, he did co-write this one.
Yeah, I know.
With the comedic partnership of writers Dan Greger and Doug Mand. They were story editors on the How I Met Your Mother series. They wrote Chippendale Rescue Rangers from a couple years ago. And then the most recent one, The Naked Gun from 2025. So they are very comedy forward. So again, a great partnership with Steve Gaghan. This is also based on a screen story by Thomas Shepard, so I don't want to leave that person out. He didn't really have any major credits, so not sure there. But this is, of course, based on the novels created by Hugh Lofting, and mostly inspired by the second book in the, I think, 15-story series that ran from 1920 to 1952. But this is The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle. The budget of the film, a staggering $175 million. Later to be reported that they actually spent $233 million, but then settled on $192 million after tax credits because of course, Hollywood accounting. But still, this is a $200 million movie. Yeah. Domestically, $77 million. Worldwide, $251 million, which I was kind of getting at. It's probably a pretty good number if they didn't spend $200 million.
Yeah.
You know? But yes, a lot of people saw it. But losses upwards of $100 million. So I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you right now, but I just really want to set the stage that Dolittle cost $200 million. Yeah, pretty wild, to say the least.
And a 2020 release also too, right? Like to go back to the numbers, the fact that it made as much as it did, like yes, it's still considered a bomb because of that cost, but it made a lot of money at a time where not everyone was flocking to the theaters, right? So,
well, it was a little before, right? Like it's technically it was slated for April 2019. And then it got out of the way of Rise of Skywalker that was coming out.
That's right. This was pushed back, right? I was thinking this is still like around. Okay, yeah, you're right.
This came out January of 2020, and we all know that's where movies go to die.
That's right, Jay. When it comes to movies, fuck you. It's January is the most magical time of the year.
That's right, Mike. Fuck you, it's January is the month that all the studios release their movies that are obviously too good for the end of the year Oscar season.
Also known as when studios dump all their garbage on your face.
Yeah, so do you think instead, like maybe, does it feel like maybe this movie like brought on the pandemic?
I mean, they tried to tell us the pandemic was animal related.
Yeah. Exactly. You know what? You're right. Yeah. Actually, where was Dr. Dolittle when we needed him, right? To see if he could have done something about this wet market. But... That was the sequel. Like Dr. Dolittle teams up with Dr. Fauci. Oh man, wow. The MAGA would love it.
Yeah. And we'd have to do a round 2 of June is what the doctor ordered. Yeah.
Well, no, actually, we just wouldn't have to be talking about this movie.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I forgot the concept of the show.
That's okay.
Okay. Where do we start here? Because do you want to talk a little bit about Dolittle the character right now, and then move on to our leading man, or like I'm throwing it to you. What do you feel? What do you feel?
I think we should start with the character. I think because the leading man conversation is a little bit more interesting, actually, and probably more like leads into this particular movie. Yeah. I really just wanted to ask you, and obviously you can ask me the same thing, or I'll just be off it. But like, what is your relationship with Dr. Dolittle? Is it a character that meant anything to you at all? Because I'm guessing there probably is a version that did, just generationally. But I'm just curious, like overall, what does this character mean to you? Did you read the books? Did you grow up as a kid, like watching the old movie or anything? What is Dr. Dolittle to you, even before this was released?
Well, growing up as a kid, like I did, like all children, love animals, right? Like it just.
I guess we should say for anyone, right? But maybe there's someone listening to this episode who they're like bizarrely are like, I don't know what Dr. Dolittle is. And we should just say like we mentioned it's a popular kids book series, but it is about a doctor who can speak to animals, so he becomes a animal physician instead of working on human patients. Yes.
For sure. Mm-hmm. But yes, as a kid, I did read like some of the books. Like the books were in the ether, you know what I mean? And especially because I just loved animals so much. But that really leaned into the Dr. Dolittle Eddie Murphy incarnations.
Yes. Yeah.
The 1998 movie, I actually remember. Actually, I saw both in theaters. But I distinctly remember the 98 movie, seeing it in theaters and loving it and watching it a bunch of times as a kid to set the stage of ages, I guess. When that came out in 98, I was, I think, 9 years old. So it was perfect for me. But no, I had watched the original Eddie Murphy version many times as a kid. So I didn't watch number two too much, and I did not watch any of the next trilogy in the chronology of that
Is that
series.
how many they made with the daughter? Seriously,
They did. They made 3 movies. One in 2006, which was titled Dr. Dolittle 3. One in 2008, Dr. Dolittle Tale to the Chief. And then Dr. Dolittle $1 Million Mutts came out in 2009. Those last
all straight to video, or
all 3 were straight to
all
video.
3? Okay, yeah.
All 3, yeah. But that was his daughter, I guess.
Yes.
That led the charge. But that's where it kind of, I don't want to say starts and stops with me, but I was a fan of that Eddie Murphy movie, like, and I was, it was a good time.
That's what I figured. This has come up on our podcast before, about like that's like just even I mean, you like to joke about the huge age difference between us. It's not that huge, but it's just big enough in like movie generation terms where you can sometimes sense it. And like it's come up before with, we just have different relationships to Eddie Murphy, kind of, where you were a kid when he was in a period where I was kind of like over Eddie Murphy, and a lot of other people were, but you were a kid, you were still digging the stuff he was making, you know? That's who he was aiming for, was kid audiences at that time. So I assumed that those movies probably were on your radar more than they were for me, because I don't think I've seen a single one of the Eddie Murphy or daughter movies. Yeah, like no interest, and just never got around to it. So.
That's fair. And I'm not here to tell you throw it on the queue.
Yeah, no, look, you're like, I'm 18 when that's coming out. Like you said, it was 1998.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I could go, I could see like, what fucking came out in 1998. Like, I'm not gonna go see Dr. Dolittle, when I'm 17 or 18.
Wow.
I'm sure there are people who did, but
yeah. My mother taking me to the theater. Yes, but yes. The books, though, yeah.
Sorry, I was busy seeing Armageddon and Godzilla. Oops, but
hey, first of all, same to both those movies.
I know, yeah.
Of course. We covered Godzilla 98 on this podcast. So if you don't know that, go listen to that. That's a great episode.
Hey, I just looked it up. I do want to point out Dr. Dolittle, the Eddie Murphy movie. You weren't alone. It was one of the 10 highest grossing movies of 1998.
Yeah, it was huge. I remember it was big.
Mm-hmm.
It was big.
Yep.
Well, like you said, Eddie Murphy was kind of tapping into the kid market for it. So that makes sense. That was probably the bigger family movie of that whole year.
Well, and at the time, too, that the crucial thing to remember about that, too, was legit. Like, it had been a really long time since Dolittle had been on screens, too.
30 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
30 years, because what is in 1967 is the musical Dr. Dolittle came out. So that was like the first theatrical incarnation of the character to come out. And so, yeah, that was, which has that famous song.
In the film, Dr. Dolittle, for those of you who do not, believes in the philosophy that man should be able to communicate with animals. And Leslie Bricusse has written one song for Rex Harrison, which he says, which Rex is only Rex Harrison can.
If we could talk to the animals, imagine chatting with a chimp and chimpanzee.
Well, I figured if I sang it like that, I wouldn't get back in my neighborhood again, you know. So we did a different version, and it goes like this. Look out, ha, 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 ha. If I could talk to the animals, I just imagine it chatting with a chimp and chimpanzee. Imagine talking to a tiger, chatting with a cheetah. Oh, what a neat achievement it would be. If we could talk to the animals and learn their languages, maybe take an animal degree. I'd study elephant and eagle, a buffalo and beagle, a alligator, guinea pig and flea.
Talk to the animals. There were so many incarnations of that song too. Like I told Trev before the podcast about it. But like Sammy Davis Jr. sings it like at the Oscars or something. Like it was a giant song back then. So if you YouTube it, you can see a bunch of people doing.
Have you seen that movie, or like is that something that ever came across, like the Rex Harrison '67 movie? I know you're not a big musical guy, but
Well, I was about to say an old musical. Come on.
So that's like one of those movies where, again, I don't think I've seen it in total, but it was still playing on TV like periodically when I was a kid, you know. This is actually something I was just talking about with my wife about how like my generation is kind of the last generation that, you know, you were still kind of and I think we've talked about this before too. You were kind of a slave to like what was just on TV at any given time. You know, we didn't have all the streaming and everything, and like TV was still like heavily programmed with a lot of old movies. So we did kind of still watch a lot of stuff from like the '60s and '70s.
The 1967 movie is 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah, those musicals back. People like to act like that's a recent thing. Long movies. No. There were long movies back then too.
Holy moly. Okay.
The thing that I always think about that movie, the Dr. Dolittle movie, is like culturally and to like film fans, the reason that movie is kind of like most remembered today is that it was like the last gasp. It's considered like the last gasp of old Hollywood, because the Best Picture race in 1967. I just want to run it down for you here. Because there's a great book about this year in cinema and this particular Best Picture race. It's actually probably the best film book I've ever read. It's called Pictures at a Revolution: 5 Movies and the Birth of the New Hollywood by Mark Harris. Heavily recommend it to anybody who likes books about cinema. And it talks about these 5 movies that all ended up nominated for Best Picture, and you'll see the theme here. So it was Dr. Dolittle was one of them, and then the other 3 were The Graduate, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Bonnie and Clyde, and In the Heat of the Night. And of course, In the Heat of the Night goes on to win, but the entire thing of the book is obviously how, you know, Dr. Dolittle was this huge, expensive, colorful family musical that was just meant to be like everything that had been like so popular for a long time in the 60s. And then here come these like badass like movies like Bonnie and Clyde and In the Heat of the Night, and suddenly everything shifts overnight, right? And Dr. Dolittle immediately felt like old fashioned, and what is this even doing here, you know? So that's just what I always think about that character. I never read any of the books either. So like Dr. Dolittle is just like one of those kind of like cultural characters that I obviously know about because of those movies. But yeah, I have no like experience with this, like no relationship to it whatsoever. I just know it's like it's the doctor that talks to animals. Yeah, I know the song, but have never like really experienced any of it until I sat down to watch this one for this episode.
Oh, funny. That's kind of fascinating, honestly. What I thought was cool, well, maybe not cool, how this idea came to Hugh Lofting, but he like wrote this story in illustrated letters to his kids from the trenches of World War One. Yeah, like what a crazy time to, you know, have inspiration for something. But I guess because it was so horrible, you know, you're like, what's the most fun childish thing is being able to talk to animals. So I guess that makes sense. But it's so insane to think that out of such hardship something like this comes to this guy, and he's writing letters to his kids, and then goes on to write like 15 stories over 30 years, and it's still a cultural, you know, touchstone for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, this is.
You don't have like I'm proof positive that you don't have to have seen any of it or like watched any of the movies to just know the Dr. Dolittle character and concept, right? It's just one of those characters that became ingrained in our culture and in our kind of, you know, conscious. That's the mark of a good idea, and obviously an idea that bore fruit with multiple novels and just an everlasting IP that just will probably continue to be revisited, even if there were some big gaps there. But that's probably just more of like a rights thing, you know. And it's probably now that we're living in like the IP forward era of Hollywood, I bet you those gaps are going to get smaller and smaller. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see another Dolittle, you know, attempt in some form sooner rather than later.
Well.
I know. I was about to add on, despite what we're going to talk about this one, but I mean, like you know, it might not be a movie, but like we're going to hear something where it's like a streaming show or a cartoon or something. Sure, right? It's too good of an idea for them to avoid. Hey, remember a couple years ago when there was like that J.R.R. Tolkien like biopic that you could tell in the trailer there were like scenes where like he's on the battlefield as a soldier and then like he sees like Gandalf. It's like they were trying to insinuate that like that's what he was like, how he was thinking of it. Do you think they should do one about that, like that for Hugh Lofting, where he's like in the trenches and then like a talking pig comes up to him?
Yeah, and then just gets blown up. And then the camera pans out and it was his friend. That was pretty dark.
Yeah, well.
You know what? Sometimes you do have to do little, and I did too much. I did too more. You know, I did do more. Anyway, okay. So why in the world does Robert Downey Jr. spearhead this thing?
Well, not only, and like, let's put all the context. Not only does he spearhead it, but this is like set up to be his big post MCU. Like, I'm done. I've finished up my over a decade long run with Tony Stark and Iron Man. He is the man who jump started that entire franchise, which took over Hollywood, right? And we are still feeling the effects of that today.
Yeah.
Completely changed like blockbuster filmmaking, completely changed what the most primary type of blockbuster made was. He was the crucial figure in Hollywood for over 10 years. Yeah. And then he says, okay, I'm wrapping that up. What should be my first thing out of the gate to like, now that I'm the newly cemented most important person in Hollywood, it'll be Dolittle. So why?
You know what's crazy is he actually kind of did this twice. Because the first time, I would argue, not that it was meant to be a franchise, but after Iron Man 3, he was kind of wrapping up that first part of his contract, right? And he was due to be in Ultron, but Civil War, they had to pay him more to get in there. Remember that. Yeah. And he goes on to fulfill his wife's passion project with The Judge in 2014. So like kind of getting away from the big blockbuster stuff to go spearhead a little bit more of a small, like intimate drama, right? Yeah. So he kind of did this twice. And I thought about that right before we recorded, that of course that was more of an artistic lane. And me personally, I haven't revisited The Judge. I do remember like loving it when I saw it, even if I remember it for being all schmaltzy. But I think it was one of those times where it was like the right movie at the right time when I watched it. But I kind of want that to live in my memory. I don't want to revisit it just in case it is terrible. But yeah, you're so right. After Endgame, like this is a guy that can literally do anything.
And I think what you just said, the distinction you made there is really important, because no matter what an audience might think of The Judge, like those are two completely different kinds of projects, right? And show that's the two different paths someone with his clout can take, right? And we see him do both, right? Of saying, okay, I am Iron Man, right?
Nice.
Also his catchphrase, yes. But because he was Iron Man, he had the clout to kind of pull off whatever he wanted. And, like you said, he can either fund small little passion projects like The Judge, or he can try and continue to chase that fame and chase that dragon that was the MCU success. Mm-hmm. And that's what obviously Dolittle represents, right? It is the, oh my God, my one franchise has ended. Also, by this point, I think it's safe to say that by 2019, 2018, whenever this is like gearing into production, it's kind of clear that they're having a hard time with Sherlock Holmes 3, right? That's like sputtering rather than really firing off. And that's still the case today, right? You can tell he still wants to do it. They just cannot get it going for whatever reason. So it's like that was supposed to be his like secondary franchise, but it only got 2. And he's desperate for like another one. And obviously we're going to talk a lot about that, but I think that's kind of like the simple answer to your question is just, he is clearly someone who was so used, I think, at this point to being the franchise guy and having this gigantic franchise for years now. It's like he needed another one, right? It was just in his blood. He couldn't imagine a world where he wouldn't be going back to the same character every couple of years and making like another big hit. So he had to find what that project would be.
Do you think he was also attracted to Dolittle because he like created that huge farm on his property that he does nothing on?
It's strange because not that I went down the rabbit hole of watching too many Robert Downey Jr. interviews about this, but I don't remember him ever really talking about. You'd think that would be like the big talking point, right? And you'd think, if you're going to do Dolittle, maybe you'll talk about how it's so important because you like love the animals or something, right? And it's such a passion project for you, and it's but I never really saw Robert Downey Jr. talk about that. In fact, and I know we'll get into this, I do think a lot of what Robert Downey Jr. had to say about this movie does kind of reveal him as someone at this point who is definitely thinking more about filmmaking as a business than an artistic statement. And I know we've talked about that with other celebrities too, and I think there are others that clearly were even more annoyed about that. Mm-hmm. But I sometimes have my issues with RDJ, and I think a lot of that shines through here, where I feel like, I'm just going to say now, this isn't getting our thoughts on the movie or anything, but I think this is kind of a cynical project to a certain degree of him, like I just said, just entirely wanting to keep the money train rolling and keep the franchise train rolling. And it was very business-minded, not creative-minded.
Well, I'll just say the quote here, that he said this after the movie had come out,
Yeah.
He had said, and bombed, right? But he says, I finished the Marvel contract and then hastily went into what had all the promise of being another big, fun, well-executed potential franchise in Dolittle. I had some reservations. Me and my team seemed a little too excited about the deal and not quite excited enough about the merits of the execution. But at that point, I was bulletproof. I was the guru of all genre movies. Now, I read that, and that was money over anything else. That's how I read that thing.
Let's just continue that quote, right? Because again, I mean, this is he's just acknowledging here that the movie was looked at. Like, whatever we feel about it, he's acknowledging how, the general audience responded to it and the fallout of it. And he says, the second most important film I've done in the last 25 years was Dolittle, because Dolittle was a 2.5-year wound of squandered opportunity. After that point, what's the phrase? Never let a good crisis go to waste. We had this reset of priorities and made some changes in who our closest business advisors were. Right? He doesn't even say it like, I kind of reconsidered like what I want to do artistically. It's more like, we changed who the people advising us on our business like takes on movies were. Right?
Yeah, we fired people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, we'll say it here, Downey made $20 million plus back end on this movie. So he made a fortune. And it kind of goes to Robert Downey Jr.'s ego too, right? Like, I mean, he's got one of the biggest in Hollywood for good reason, though. Like, I mean, you can't knock the guy. he like you said, he created, helped to create an entire segment of the industry at this point. So when he says he's bulletproof, he's not wrong, or at least felt that way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I was just recently watching a docu-series about Spider-Man. The new one's coming out, so I'm kind of in the mood. And like, they talk about Robert Downey Jr. coming on to Spider-Man Homecoming, right? And being heavily involved with like even choosing Peter Parker. It all came down to Tom Holland and some other guys doing screen tests with Robert Downey Jr. and him saying, "Oh, this is the guy." And then that movie went on to make like almost $1 billion on itself with having him co-starring, right? And even the second half to the Avengers stories still seem to evolve or revolve around him and his character. So again, bulletproof. That is absolutely the word I would use if I was RDJ and the ego and the bank account to prove it, It's interesting because
it's compelling to look at all of this and wonder, is it like evidence of one of two things, right? Either it's an evidence of what that level of power and success can do to corrupt a person, because you could obviously look at it and make the argument that like, well, let's not forget the Robert Downey Jr. story, right? Promising young actor, everyone thinks he's really, really talented, seems like he's on the rise, and then gets completely waylaid by terrible addiction and becomes like a joke and just a punchline, a punching bag, riddled with arrests and controversies, and people think his career is done, right? And then he fights his way back, a number of like small projects, but only a few filmmakers want to take a shot at him, but he gives these like amazing performances. Bigger studios don't really want to finance him, hire him, insure him, but they like put up a fight to get him in the Iron Man role, and it's just like, it's like lightning strike, right? Like, it's just perfect casting for the perfect character, and he suddenly overnight becomes like the biggest star in Hollywood. And so there's an argument to be made that it could say, well, he should have been kind of humble at that point. And honestly, if you go back and watch those like early years of the MCU, he kind of was, right? It seemed like he was someone who was very mindful of what he had gone through and where he'd come from, and was very, very thankful to have gotten out of that. And you could tell that like that's a lot of his reaction to like the early days of the MCU success were like, I know what it was to be like at the very bottom, and I'm going to savor this, right?
Sure.
And so some people might hope that he would maintain that same kind of mentality moving forward. But about like halfway through like his MCU tenure, you can kind of start to see where he feels like suddenly it's a little bit more ego and a little bit more like, ooh, he's like becoming more of like a power player and really pushing that like ego, and like, he seems to know how important he is to Disney, and he can kind of hold them over the coals a little bit for like bigger paydays. But I guess I pose the question to you: is that evidence of like, well, see, that could just happen to anybody, even someone who went through what he went through and like should be humble, this can get to your head? Or is it actually like a good thing to say like, well, no, actually that's evidence that this was always in him, and even during his like lowest lows, the thing that we always kind of liked about Robert Downey Jr. was that he always innately had that charisma and that ego, and that we could feel that even in those early performances, right? So it's kind of like, no, this is just like a reminder that this is the guy, right? And I think that speaks to why, I'll just say the names, like this whole like business minded thing, we've talked negatively about that in the sense of The Rock and Will Smith, how we feel like they've both gone wildly off the rails in terms of how they view their career.
Yeah.
And like, there's arguments to be made about Robert Downey Jr. at the same degree, but whether it's because he hasn't done as many projects that have flamed out as those guys have, or it's just because it's just Robert Downey Jr. and it's Iron Man. I don't think you find people still who like really hate the guy, right? Yep. Or like super annoyed by him. It's just more like, oh boy, we can see that he's like a little, he thinks about business more than creativity, but like still I think people are mostly rooting for him. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh no, that's exactly my feelings with him too.
Yeah.
I think he is a total egomaniac.
Yeah.
But deserving. Like he really did hit rock bottom, you know, for this industry, but not just the industry, but like for like real life.
Yeah.
Real life. Like, yes, he comes from, famous stock, but, addiction can hit anybody. We both know that. So it's like he could have easily died all those years ago.
I mean, there was definitely periods where you were like, you had that feeling.
You were surprised he was alive.
I will not be surprised if tomorrow I hear Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
like got in some horrible accident or something and is no longer with us. Yeah.
No, totally. And I think it helps our view because he is playing Tony Stark and there is that like symbiosis of their personalities, and like he just like Tony Stark became Robert Downey Jr. in a lot of ways, right? Like like it just felt like they were just the perfect match and perfect mix, and then it was hard to even disassociate one from the other. Like, I mean, me and you both have been at Comic-Cons where they're unveiling the new movie, and he like I remember the one when he ran out with the Luther Vandross was playing, and like I think that was for Ultron. He came out, he's wearing the glove, and he was introducing everybody. Like he's a showman.
Oh yeah.
And he relishes it, but he's just filled with charisma and charm. And it's something that a movie like Dolittle, for what we're going to talk about it, and the financial failure and all this other stuff, didn't really hurt him. The next movie he goes on to make, he wins an Oscar. Mm-hmm. So it's like, again, I keep going to when he says he's bulletproof, I believe it. Like even the judge I remember people were weird about, but he came back from that. And then there was also something else he came back from. Oh, not even this. Tropic Thunder. Like at the time when Tropic Thunder came out, and the stupid idiots that didn't get the joke of his blackface performance, he survived that too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it's like,
and I find that's wild as well.
You can say he survived that just because it is clearly a joke, but no, there's like actually tons of performers who would be feeling a much more huge blowback on that today, right?
Oh yes.
But because it's Robert Downey Jr., I think people are look back and go like, even if the people who like kind of are angry about it, they're like, yeah, but I mean, it is Iron Man. It's like no one wants to like cancel Robert Downey Jr. over that.
No.
So, yeah.
No. So I think he's been through this before, and he is a guy that you just root for. I made a flippant joke about his farm on his property that he doesn't do anything on. And I remember me and you both talking about that years ago when he did that interview with David Letterman, one of that Netflix series. Yeah. And they went to his farm, and he's just got like hired, immigrants, yeah. just like tilling his own farm, and he doesn't know what's going on. Yeah. He just has tons of animals, and you can tell he has no idea what's going on. And why he owns this property, why he has this farm now, it's just because he can. And he is a crazy person. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's an insane person, but I can't not root for the guy.
Well, it is that hitting rock bottom thing, right? It is. There are other celebrities who hit that level of excess, and you just get like sick of them. Mm-hmm. And I think kind of we as a society decided like, yeah, but this guy went through like 20 years of hell. Like, he deserves it. Let him have his fun. Like that's kind of a big part of it.
Yeah. Buy 30 pigs for no reason. Like, it's just, I completely
You know what?
agree.
Anytime you're buying pigs for no reason, you're not buying crack, so great.
No, 100%.
Like let him indulge in all his other excesses, because it's probably better for him and us, right? So,
and also, I mentioned I didn't mention her by name, but Susan Downey, his wife, produced The Judge, and they're producing partners on a lot of their films that he makes, including this one. But they have like a great marriage too, and that is actually endearing. Like, Downey is always thanking her in any speech he makes, and he always talks about Mrs. Downey, he always says, and how much she puts up with him, and how much, you know, like she is his rock. And again, there is something about this guy who obviously has this giant ego and endless money. He isn't that philanderer, you know? Like, not even that I'm trying to shade or shame that. It's just that there's something homegrown about him still. You know, he goes home to his wife and they live in a fantastical life, obviously, but they have a good thing going, and that is also endearing to me.
And he hasn't, and I mean, granted, maybe this is just by nature of the fact that he had Iron Man to fall back on for so long, so he didn't have to do this, but he hasn't like taken that clout. You know, obviously we're about to talk about one failure, and there's been like slight other ones, but he hasn't taken that clout and fired it off in too many directions to allow people to get like sick of him, right? So for most of that MCU run, other than a few things here and there, like a cameo in Chef, The Judge, Due Date, you know, at the very beginning of it, he did The Soloist, you know, but mostly he was just Tony Stark, you know, and well, of course the Sherlock Holmes, right? But then again, those are two like, you know, pretty successful franchise films. And then after Dolittle, you know, he, like you said, he comes back and does Oppenheimer. And I'm sure at the end of this episode, we'll talk about like the Oppenheimer doomsday of it all, and how this film might like leads to all that. But you don't look at his IMDb right now, and it doesn't say like 20 films like in development, or like we haven't heard him assigned on to like 100 other projects. It's like, even like right now, he's just concentrating on going back to the MCU. And, you know, whatever we feel about that, I know we want to talk about it briefly at the end, but like, he's not like The Rock, where The Rock, you can tell, is just so desperate to always have 100 things in development and like have 14 new potential franchise stars ready to go. That's not what RDJ is doing either. It seems like he just wants like one at any given time. Like, right. He wants to be kind of like, so he wants something to fall back on, but he doesn't want to like overly inundate himself with everyone. He doesn't want us to get sick of him. So he kind of like, it's strange to say for someone who is so omnipresent on our screens for like the year run that was the MCU, but he still never let us get sick of him. You know, he could have easily been putting out like a bunch of other movies at that same time too, and he didn't. Totally.
That's a good way of putting it. You're never sick of him.
Yeah.
And even now, like, I know he's coming back for Avengers, and I mean, we'll see when it happens, but it seems to be a little bit more of a reinvention. Like, I mean, I kind of want to talk about it right now in a little bit, but I think for me, it has an air of excitement for me to be like, okay, well, that's going to be very interesting that he's coming back as a villain that looks like the main hero, and then he's going to interact with all these heroes that watched him die. And I think there's inherent drama there, and I am genuinely excited to see him back. Not in an Iron Man though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like if they were bringing
a different Iron Man, but
if they were resurrecting Iron Man, I would be a little bit more upset about that. But I think it's there's something interesting about him coming back as like a big bad and fighting all these heroes that love him. So
I guess you're
definitely more cynical about this, and I know you are. So I don't think I'm going to move your needle anyway. But I think I am genuinely like really looking forward to him back.
How about Chris Evans? Anyway,
well, again, see that, and that's a little bit more cynical. So I would more or less agree with you on that case that they're bringing back Captain America, and that one is a little bit like, okay, well, he had a great send off, and in here it would be different if they're bringing back Iron Man. So that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah. I think the Doomsday thing just still bothers me because it does feel like you said cynical, and it still to me like reeks of desperation on both the MCU's part and like a little bit on Robert Downey Jr.'s part.
I'm not even denying that. Denying that. I'm almost like coming purely from personal like enjoyment. Like I can do the bird's eye view of being like, oh yeah, I know what they're doing. But again, I just like Robert Downey Jr. I'm kind of like circling back to this situation here. Is that like why we still root for him? You know?
He didn't do himself any favors with that one, where he did his whole like kind of press run for Oppenheimer, talking about how like this was the beginning of like this new era for him, because he had gotten out of the MCU and he's like, now I can really pursue these like small, these like really actor forward dramas. And he wins an Oscar and was like, oh my god, is he going to become Daniel Day-Lewis now? What's going to happen? And he's like, oh, actually, I'm going back and doing Avengers Doomsday. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, Trev, if I would give you $100 million, I think you'd actually say that you would change everything about yourself. Actually.
Well, Chris, at what point do you have enough money?
I agree.
I get it. He needs 2 farms, I guess. But
that's funny. Okay, Dolittle.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just briefly talk about the behind the scenes. There's not a lot here, but let's just briefly talk about how the rights. You actually set that up perfectly earlier, but there was a auction for the rights here, and Universal got the rights. Sony tried for it. 20th Century Fox tried for it, but Universal got it. And in 2017, Robert Downey Jr. signed on. At the time, it was called The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle, which was the title of the second book. This went through 21 days of reshoots, which isn't necessarily a crazy thing, but almost a month is a long time, and that is quite a bit.
And it was extensive. Because of test screenings that went pretty poorly.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they were so poor that they actually brought on a different director, Jonathan Liebsman. He directed Battle Los Angeles, which is a movie we'll talk about one day. Wrath of the Titans, which is a movie we actually discussed just recently a little bit. We mentioned it about Sam Worthington. The 2014 Ninja Turtles movie, the Michael Bay one. And then they brought in Chris McKay to write, or to help with the rewrites, and he did Robot Chicken, the Lego Batman movie, coming from animation and comedy again. And then even Universal went out to Seth Rogen to bring in here, which he eventually dropped out just because of prior commitments. But they started bringing on more and more people to get this script and this... They tried to Frankenstein this thing to work.
Well, by most accounts, the problems with the test screenings where people felt like this is really treacly and like, why isn't it funny? So, you look at who they brought on, right? Like Chris McKay, Seth Rogen, Brendan O'Brien, who was Rogen's Neighbors co-writer. And they basically brought these guys on and said, hey, can you like do some punch up on this and make this funny? Because we forgot to the first time apparently, right? And like obviously that, I'm being flippant. Clearly that's just not what they're aiming for originally, but they found out that's what audiences were expecting. Audience thought like, if I'm going to sit through a Dr. Dolittle movie with Robert Downey Jr., I'm expecting this to be kind of fun and funny. So it seemed like that was more of like a late addition to the movie.
Well, and it makes sense because the expectation makes sense because, again, we talked a little bit about the Eddie Murphy movies, so they came off of that, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Dolittle and Talking Animals is inherently fun, right? And then Robert Downey Jr. playing a likable, funny character as Tony Stark. This movie should have never been thought of as a dramatic retelling of the stories, right? They should have had an air of comedic presence. So
even though you can definitely still watch the movie and feel the original bones of like that more dramatic take on it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. But then the title was eventually changed to simply Dolittle. I don't know. I guess less word salad, but I don't know.
Yeah. And it is interesting just because I just thought this was an interesting note in the dossier too because this is so different than a lot of other movies we look at, is that despite all that, right, despite bringing on another director for 21 days of reshoots, despite multiple writers brought on, despite them kind of reconceiving the movie as they go along, the Hollywood Reporter actually said that, despite all this, from what they heard, it was never a challenge production, and there was like no fights for power. There was never any like people with competing cuts. Like it seemed like everyone kind of came together and said like, we got to figure this out, right? It's kind of more like they couldn't figure it out, but nobody was like getting angry at anybody, or nobody was like, it didn't become like a power play behind the scenes or anything. Nobody was shut out. It was just like, no, everybody was trying to be like, oh, good God, we have to try and figure out what this is before it comes out.
Yeah. And a lot of people signed on. Like, this is the thing, like the voice cast is stacked. We got Emma Thompson, Rami Malek, John Cena, Kumail Nanjiani, Octavia Spencer, Tom Holland, of course. Craig Robinson is in this. Ray Fiennes is in here. Selena Gomez. Marianne Cotillard is in this. And then the human cast, Antonio Banderas, Michael Sheen, Jim Broadbent, Jesse Buckley, who's just a recent Oscar winner. This cast...
Ralph Ineson, come on, Galactus himself. Don't leave him out.
Well, oh, yeah, right. I guess Ralph Ineson is in this. But people really did come together for this. it got to be because of Robert Downey Jr. backing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like him saying, "Hey guys, let's be a part of a franchise. I got this thing going. I got all the power. I got all the money. We're gonna make this thing, and we're gonna make 10 of them."
Well, it's definitely that, right? Because remember that famous story about like Gwyneth Paltrow being like not sure she wants to do like the Iron Man movies and get locked down into something, and Robert Downey Jr. actually saying to her like, "Don't you want to make movies that people see?" Right? And basically him telling her like, "No, I get it. Like you and I both like these like small little artsy movies, but like, come on, like we can make movies that everyone goes to see and people enjoy and kids love, and you become iconic. And you know, for not like obviously not just the business reasons, but beyond, like it does help you. Just you're going to get more power for your other projects by that. So
Totally.
yeah.
Okay, let's talk Dolittle on the other side of this.
As a boy, John Dolittle had a special gift.
Why do dogs sniff each other?
That's just kind of our way of shaking hands.
But not everyone
John, this is your new principal.
Nice to meet you, John.
could appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
John, I command you to come out of this, boy.
30 years later, the gift is back.
Now what?
John, the animal, could not have talked to you.
He's a lunatic.
Hello.
Dad, I have to go.
Lucky's in the bathroom right now.
Dog is using the bathroom.
John, this is crazy. Don't fix me. I won't look at another female ever. I swear. Yo, baby, what's up? You looking pretty sweet there, sugar. No.
Hey, honey.
Who's this?
I'll give you a hint. I'm cute, I'm furry, and I make 500 babies a year.
You get your little furry butt back in your cage, right? I don't want your trappings up.
Bye-bye. My son Rodney, little hairy boy, sleeps in the cage. I have to keep him in the cage because he has a hygiene problem. Doctor, just guessing, but I think you might have just lost your thermometer.
It's going south for the winter.
I'd like to go in manually.
What's he saying?
You don't want to know.
Hello.
The word is out.
I want you to just stop barking and chirping. You know, a Tic Tac wouldn't kill you.
The doctor is in.
Hey, listen, if you have any extra medication, I can really use it. Say, wow!
Stop talking to me!
Eddie Murphy.
Oh, Mrs. Dolittle.
Do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight.
Dr. Dolittle.
You're gonna have to give him CPR. I don't know.
No tongue, doc.
No,
It's a false alarm. It's just gas. Stop looking at me like that.
When a dang jiggy, get jiggy with the mad scientist, Mr. Dolittle.
After his wife's death, the eccentric Dr. John Dolittle isolates himself away. Wait, I'm doing the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllables here. After his wife's death, the eccentric Dr. John Dolittle isolates himself away behind the high walls of Dolittle Manor, with only his animals as company. When Queen Victoria falls deathly ill, a reluctant Dolittle is forced on an epic adventure to a mythical island in search of a cure, regaining his wit and courage as he crosses old adversaries and encounters wondrous new creatures.
That is a pretty good plot description for 2020's Dolittle. Chris, I think we might have got some wires crossed on the trailer there. I believe you accidentally played the trailer for the Eddie Murphy Dr. Dolittle movie.
It was no accident. I am pure chaos agent. And I wanted to make myself laugh as I edited this thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, I was in need of some laughs. We'll say
there is also the fact that the main primary trailer for Dolittle is a boring trailer to watch, and probably a boring trailer, even more boring trailer to just listen to.
Yes, it's funny because of course, movies have 3 or 4 trailers, and when I edit these things, I will turn the trailer on, but I won't watch the visuals to make sure it's working.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. So
yeah.
Here we are.
Well, I'm going to let you go first because I know this was a first time watch for me. You as well, I believe. Had you seen this before or no?
No, first time.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give some grace here up top. And what I will say is kids do love talking animals. Okay.
Yeah.
So as a concept, obviously we just talked about it. It should work. right? Kids love talking animals, and there is I'm sure if you put a kid in front of the screen on this thing, they would be entertained for a while. Like the movie's not long. But Trev, this sucked. Like this sucked. And it bums me out because I didn't go into it with expectations other than this is probably going to suck. Like, again, we just said it changed Robert Downey Jr.'s, like, he had like an epiphany because of the movie sucking so bad. However, I kind of wanted to go into it with like an open mind and be like, okay, let's pretend I'm 10-year-old me and watch this. And Trev, it just doesn't work. And a lot of it is because of Robert Downey Jr. I just talked about how much I love the guy and I root for him. But what the fuck voice is he doing in this movie?
Well, he's attempting a Welsh accent, notably, famously, one of the hardest accents for someone to do if they're not Welsh. Yeah.
Like,
once Humphrey's been secured, you put me out on Yoshi's signal.
Me? I can't handle that type of pressure, Doc. I'm a cheer quietly from the sidelines kind of gorilla.
Don't worry, Cheech. You rise to the occasion. Huh? You're stronger than you know. Now remember, courage is not the absence of fear.
And I understand he's trying to differentiate himself from the Sherlock Holmes character. Okay, fine, I get it. But also just talk in your normal voice then. Because I bet you, Trev, every single line of dialogue in this is 80 yard. Which is...
It sounds like it.
It does, right? To you it did? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because what that tells me is that it wasn't working on the day, and they were all like, okay, we'll fix it later.
Enemy! Starboard aft! Elliot, you and Elsie, ready the machine. We're gonna need speed. Send out the call.
Where are the lifeboats? This whole thing is a death boat.
Stubbins, boy, I need you now more than ever to stand still.
I surrender. We surrender.
Oh, hello, Blair, you chinless wonder.
Unfortunately, it doesn't get fixed, but it's very much a Masters of the Universe Dolph Lundgren situation that they're just dubbing him entirely with retakes in a sound booth. But he's just mumbling through this, and it is very off-putting. And I think, like, again, I'm going to talk to you as if I'm a 10-year-old boy, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, I like the animals, okay? They're talking, cute. I'm a baby. But I don't understand what the fuck Robert Downey Jr. is saying. And he's coming off like so unhinged instead of lovable. Like, there's a thing about being eccentric, but he's coming off like uncomfortable. You know, like he's hard to like relate to. You don't really want to watch him, even though it's Robert Downey Jr. He's just mumbling through this bad Welsh accent, and it feels like an actor acting outside of his comfort zone. And I say that because the movie's obviously trying to be silly and comedic, but RDJ's not like, because he's obviously silly and comedic at some points, but this felt like a Jim Carrey role. It comes off phony. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So like I felt he came off phony here, but my biggest problem with the movie. This is my thesis of the entire conversation that I want to have with you.
I wonder if it's going to be the very first thing I was going to bring up. But go ahead.
Okay. I hate that the animals are heightened and anthropomorphized to a level that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Now, let me explain to you in detail. Okay. Dr. Dolittle can talk to animals. Okay? That does not mean that the animals all of a sudden act more human. I understand that this movie's supposed... Did you just yawn?
I'm just thinking about the movie. Yeah, you could tell. No, it's not you.
Okay.
It's just because you are literally talking about Dolittle. I'm just like...
No, I know. This is what I'm getting at, though, because I understand it's trying to be whimsical, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. But why are animals playing cards together? Why are animals shaving Doolittle's beard? Why is a polar bear tanning on a ship? Why are monkeys drinking out of straws? Why does a dragonfly have facial expressions as if he's a cartoon? And because the animals are over animated, it's very distracting, and it takes away from the power and the impressive engagement of a Dr. Dolittle talking to them, because now he's just talking to cartoons. And I think that is lame.
They also talk in like modern day pop culture references and jokes, which was driving me insane.
Yes, and did you? I sent you a clip that they did a promo thing, like an audition, a fake audition of the fake animals talking to Robert Downey Jr., almost like that SNL sketch from years ago of like different roles in Star Wars.
You got the memo, right? Today we're just gonna mix things up and reenact some classics.
Okay.
You cool with that, right?
Talent dab movie Jaws.
We're gonna need a bigger shark.
I think you meant to say boat.
Of course.
Check. Yeah, okay.
We're gonna need a bigger shark boat.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Scarface.
Say hello to my little friend.
Hello.
Okay, here's my feedback. Maybe a little more threatening.
I'm not threatening my friend.
I mean, he's got a big gun, and it's the climax of the movie. He's nuts.
Oh, I got it.
Bring it.
Say hello to my little friend.
Notting Hill.
I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
Okay, I'm under the impression Plimpton got the wrong pages. Yeah?
Embarrassing.
Meet the Parents.
I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
Okay.
And that audition tape was like full of pop culture references?
Yeah.
So again, are you doing a historical retelling of this with comedic elements, or why are you throwing in contemporary language? That was driving me like animals are calling each other bro. That bothered me. And again, they're acting more human. So anyways, I've gone on long enough. I'll throw it to you.
Well, so I'm just going to put a button on the thing I was going to talk about then, just to feed off what you just said. Because, the animal thing is a great point, because it makes it seem like it makes him seem less special too, right?
Yes.
Because if in this universe the animals are already so smart that they just act like humans, then it kind of like doesn't matter that other humans can't talk to them. They should just be able to communicate with them. You know, if these are animals who can play chess with a human, they can probably communicate with a human who can't speak their language. You know, I'm sure they would be able to figure it out. And even the idea in this movie that it's just that anybody can learn to speak to animals. It's not like this inherent ability that Dr. Dolittle is born with. It's like the Stubbins character, the young kid who's kind of the audience surrogate, ostensible lead role, right? Mm-hmm. He's learning to do this throughout the movie. So it's just it's something Dolittle can do, but he can teach it as well. And I didn't really love that either. No. You started by giving this movie some grace. Or as much as you could. Yeah. I will do the same and just say that I just think it's a godsend that this movie was made at a time where Hollywood was already starting to get a little sick of Johnny Depp, because you just know Johnny Depp watched this and was like, God damn it, that should have been mine. And obviously in a different world, this probably would have been a late stage Tim Burton Johnny Depp movie, and probably would have been even worse. But that's the thing, is like you said the thing about how this should have been Jim Carrey role. I did look at this and go like, well, I think this is kind of the kind of movie they were making for Johnny Depp for like 10 years before this, and like that seems more obvious to me than Robert Downey Jr. You're right, like Robert Downey Jr. seems out of place here, you know. My biggest issue, I'm going to start with this, right, because it feeds into one of my big problems here, is Chris, this kid's adventure movie, Dolittle, the magical, wonderful story of the doctor who can talk to animals. Why does it start by telling us how his wife tragically died? And then we have to a character that was never in the books. Why did they invent a wife for Dr. Dolittle? Just to kill her before the movie began, so that he can spend the entire movie a sad, grieving widow who's locked himself off from humanity? Why?
You know why? This was the era and trend in movies where your
heroes
heroes are just curmudgeons and depressed.
And I know you and I have arguments about this sometimes, and my argument to that is here's the thing though, right? When you do that with a character like Luke Skywalker, when you do that with a character like Indiana Jones, right? When you do that with a character like Batman, you are making a conscious decision to say, hey, we've already told a lot of stories of this character. Let's try and see like what the ultimate outcome of that life is. And maybe it's interesting to see how you tell a story about how like the more heroic elements of your youth don't necessarily mean you'll always end up that way.
Agreed.
But maybe it's interesting to say in the future you can try and get that back, right? That's a storytelling trope that can and often does work.
Totally.
The issue here is that this is the first Dolittle movie of this incarnation. and you're already making him this like sad sack widower that hates every human, and also like he like hates humanity and is like shut himself off from it. But his wife died in like a shipwreck. There's like they didn't even like come up with like a story element which made it seem like it makes sense for him to like blame humanity or for him to be as like angry as he is. Like she went off on her own reconnaissance, took her own ship out to sea, and passed away. So it doesn't even like it doesn't really
a total
track.
freak accident.
Yeah. So and that's what I mean about how you can. This is a problem too, right? So there's that element. And then you can see how that's the initial bones of the movie, right? And what obviously probably attracted Robert Downey Jr. because he thought this is compelling, right? I'll be doing Dr. Dolittle, but I'll get to do this like sad, kind of more dramatic version.
What all the kids want.
And then at a certain point, the studio and the audience is like, yeah, that's great. Can you add in like 100 fart jokes? And like, oh man, we were having so much fun with this theme month. Dr. Detroit was bad, but in like a really interesting way. And then Dr. Giggles was like so much fun. And yeah, I'm sure you already knew this. And I'm sure coming in, you probably knew what I was going to say about this because you know me. Like this is like my least favorite kind of movie nowadays. Is just this like bloated, clearly Frankenstein, as you said earlier, just crass, cynical studio blockbuster that is just like so like all the studio notes are evident on the screen. The obvious like cutting down. You talked about how it's short, and thank God it's under 2 hours. But you can also see when just entire sequences have clearly been cut because they will literally have Emma Thompson's Polly Parrot character come in and like narrate missing sequences. Like there's the sequence where they get to like the island nation that his wife came from, and and there's like a whole part where they're like invading the nation. That's all condensed into like 10 seconds, and she just like tells us what happened, and I'm like, oh, that just was they filmed that. They just cut it, this. You were right. This just sucks. Like I was just like miserable watching this. This is like this is the worst Hollywood kind of excess, and unfortunately, you're right. It does reek of. As much as I love RDJ, you watch this and you go like, this is a poorly executed like passion project, ego project. That's the problem. It's just and nothing is working.
And I think it's telling when you said nobody was fighting, and I think the reason is because nobody cared except for the paycheck. Right? Yeah. There is no fight for creativity in something benign of the creative element. Like this really is made from like the worst place, a paycheck. And I understand the movie industry is what it is. It's an industry to make money. I get it. But, no stories came out of Robert Downey Jr. being like, an asshole on set, getting people to get shit done, and oh my god, we gotta do Dolittle right, but right by the fans, we gotta make sure it's working, we gotta make sure this is happening. But no, it's a pure cynical cash grab, and it just plays on screen. Scenes are just happening at you. The voiceover acting is very paint by numbers. It's very, hey Kumail, come into this office and read these lines on your cell phone. There's no oomph, right? I will say, here's some grace. The best scene and performance in the movie, because he's a never bad, Ray Fiennes as Barry the Tiger.
Lie down.
On my head.
We could resume your treatment.
The stress is unbearable. I just want to be a good boy. I just want to make Mummy proud.
We are?
No one I eat will ever be good enough.
There's the release. Release it.
I will never be good enough unless I eat you. Because every mother wants their son to grow up and eat a doctor.
You're a sick kitty.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's one other performance I'll give a shout out to. You're probably going to also know which one I'm going to point to. It's one of the human performances. Another like kind of a level of never bad of just always knowing what kind of movie's in and knowing how to go for it when others don't. And that's Michael Sheen as like the human villain in this, who is like playing it in the way that everybody else should have been doing, right? Like doing an over the top comedy, like cartoon character, and like that's what you want to see from him. So totally. I also give him a shout out. But yes, Ray Fiennes as the Tiger, also great.
Yeah, that was a great scene too, because it's like, you can see Dolittle using his therapizing, on the tiger, which is kind of fun. He's like, the tiger's got mommy issues. And then he like distracts him with a reflection off a mirror, like a laser pointer, and it just, Ray Fiennes is so good.
Give up, Dolittle. You can't outsmart... Oh, what was that? Oh, wait. Now it's over there. And now it's over here. Now it's back over there. Got it. And now it's over here. Oh, we lost it. We've got to get it.
A cat is still a cat. Easily distracted.
Like, he's actually acting.
Yeah.
While, you know, I love Tom Holland. I was just talking about Spider-Man, but he plays a dog. He says some lines.
Well, every other, like, besides Ray Fiennes, yeah, every other character in this, every other voice, let's talk about this voice cast for a second, because every other performance made me think of that great John Mulaney skit from his Sack Lunch Bunch special on Netflix with the focus group of kids of when they're making a new animated film. And he's telling the kids about who are going to be the voice cast, and it's like a bunch of like 10-year-old kids. He's like, we got Stanley Tucci to play like the ostrich, and all the kids are like, oh my God, Stanley Tucci, you know, just making fun of that idea that has been so true in Hollywood for the past 20 plus years of saying like, you know, there are like super talented voice actors out there, and then they'll go like, yeah, but we could also get Octavia Spencer to play the duck, you know. And then I go like, okay, I guess, but who's that for? No kid cares that you have Octavia Spencer playing Dab Dab the duck, you know? And at the same time, I'll tell you this, I like Octavia Spencer. I watched the entire movie and didn't know that was her. So like, what's the point? I could also say for like Rami Malek. You think any kid is like, oh my God, you got Rami Malek to play from Mr. Robot to play the gorilla? No kid is saying that, and no adult cares that it's Rami Malek. So like, what are we doing here? Just get like talented voice like performers to do these characters and bring a little bit more life to them, because some of these actors just don't know how to do that when they're in the booth, you know, just recording these voices.
It definitely reeked of like the old school DreamWorks way of doing animated movies, you know, like the Shark Tales of the world. It doesn't really work. And even like John Cena, like we all love John Cena. Who doesn't like John Cena? He plays a polar bear in this.
Yeah.
And first of all, don't make him a polar bear, because polar bears, we all know, would eat and kill everybody on screen. Always. Doesn't matter. Make him a different type of bear. But a polar bear, it's not realistic. Anyway. I was thinking about Avatar, The Way of Water during this as well. Because of Payakan.
Yeah.
You know? It goes back to what I was talking about, how making the animals too cartoony. There is such power in The Way of Water when Loak is talking to Payakan, and again, kind of doing his like a Dolittle thing. You know, they're speaking to each other, and you just believe it. There's heart to it. There's an emotional connection to it. There's a beauty to it. And this one, because it's so hastily thrown together with, like you said, bad contemporary one-liners, and, you know, audio booth acting, and then incoherent mumblings of Robert Downey Jr., like, it just doesn't come together. And I go back to the 10-year-old me brain that wants to watch talking animals. There's a reason why Dr. Dolittle from 1998, the Eddie Murphy version, works and spun off a franchise that did speak to children far better than this, like, again, Frankenstein monster of a blockbuster. You know, why did they spend $200 million? Like, I kept asking myself that, and it's actually not all on screen.
No,
I was hoping to come into this saying, wow, you can really see $200 million everywhere. No, they're filming on like just a green screen stage on like some shitty boat for like.
Yeah, the movie like looks so artificial.
The lighting's bad.
Yeah, the CGI is often bad. The animals aren't. They didn't really pull off the like Uncanny Valley, or no, it is Uncanny Valley. They didn't pull off the realism where the animals actually look like they are there with the humans.
Totally.
Like it looks a little bit more Roger Rabbit-y, which is like, I guess you could say it's fine because we love Roger Rabbit, but they're going for like realism here.
Again, that's my over animated criticism, that the animals are just over animated. They're too anthropomorphic.
You said something too earlier, and this kind of comes back to me saying how this is the kind of movie I hate the most. You said something earlier where you said scenes are just happening at you. I'll give you a great example of that, because obviously this is something, okay, we just brought up Avatar, and something you and I always talk about, like why we think Jimmy Cams is such a genius, is because, as we like to call him, because we're good friends with him, is because he is the best at constructing sequences that have, 3 act structures within them, and always like happen for the right reasons in the script at the time, and like propel the narrative along in a way where it makes sense and is understood, and it doesn't feel like it's wasting your time. Now, there's a moment in this scene. There's a scene in this movie where Stubbins, the young boy who wants to be Dolittle's apprentice, but Dolittle is like resisting him the whole movie. He hopes that he can go on this adventure with Dolittle, and Dolittle says, "No, you have to stay behind." And Dolittle gets on his ship with all his animals and sails off on these adventures. And Stubbins is like, "Oh, I guess I'll just stay home." But then Polly comes and gets him and says, "Well, don't listen to Dolittle. Come along. I'll get you on the ship." And so we get to like this like 5-minute action scene of Stubbins trying to get on the ship. And Chris, I can just tell you my like soul sank watching that scene, because it's just like this like unending, uninteresting CGI action scene of this kid trying to like get on this boat that we all know he's gonna get on. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, okay, I don't care. Why am I watching this? Can't he just get on the boat? Like, we know he's going to get on the boat. Let's just do it, right? And like the scene doesn't like serve to do anything other than just give us a bunch of like CGI spectacle. Mm-hmm. And that's what I hate, right? It's like, why is this here? Like, save the spectacle for moments that the story actually needs it. And like to waste 5 minutes of us just watching this kid have to like jump from thing to thing and go from this to this just to get on the boat. It's like, oh, all right. Like, that's the kind of blockbuster shit that Hollywood just never learns. They feel like the audience like wants that stuff. Yeah. And I feel like the audience just always feels like largely checked out during that. If they don't really feel that like the narrative impetus or drive behind it.
Yeah, if there's no emotional connection to it, it becomes like distraction, Like
yeah.
it kind of feels like the studio is, jingling keys in front of you.
Yes.
And even to a child, like, I got friends with small kids now, and I know you do too, but they can lose interest pretty quick.
Yeah.
And this feels like one of those movies. There's a movie like a K-pop Demon Hunters where kids and adults alike are like transfixed to the screen, right? Because it's interesting, and it's voice actors too. Remember that?
Yeah.
And that was like a little movie that could, and now it just became a cultural phenomenon, right? Because we can come at it from a place of cynicism, right? And that's why I keep harping on that. I really, truly turned this thing on and tried.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I really did. I was like, okay, let's watch this as a child would. And again, if you're making for a child, why are you making these pop culture references that they don't even understand? Like that audition tape. That audition tape, they were parroting movies that are like 50, 60, 70 years old.
Yeah. Well, even in this, right? They make like they do like a Rush Hour reference, and it's like,
totally.
Young kids don't care about Rush Hour, like
no.
And the adults you're trying to get with the Rush Hour reference are just already checked out because the rest of the humor is so juvenile, So it's, and that's what you can tell, like when you think about this movie having to add all these reshoots and to make it funny, they just leaned in on like crass juvenile humor too. Yeah. And it's like neither of us are above juvenile humor. I think you have a little bit more tolerance for it than I do, but I'm not opposed to it. But like when it's like lazy, it is the worst kind of humor, and that is true in this big time. Like it's the juvenile humor in this is just like so lazy and never funny and just aggravating.
Can I say the worst offender? And it's going to be a spoiler.
Yeah.
Okay. So tune out now. Go watch the movie. Come back, I guess, if you don't want to be spoiled for Dolittle. But at the end of the movie, it's revealed that there's a dragon on this island.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, at first, I was like, "Oh, sick, a dragon!" Like who doesn't like dragons, right? And I was like, "That's pretty cool. Okay, I like that. It's a cool reveal." And then you watch Dolittle pick up the language of this dragon. Okay, that's kind of cool. We're seeing his quote-unquote power at work. Okay. And then he starts to therapize the dragon, which is great. I'm like, okay, we're seeing more of the doctorate in him. And then he performs a colonoscopy on the dragon, and it ends in the largest fart gag I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You might feel a bit of pressure.
I got her.
Oh, good heavens!
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh my gosh!
Just clearing the way.
Is that armor?
You got the old Spanish army in you. Gives a deep breath. Hold it. Word of warning.
What's up, Doc?
When removing the blockage, you'll see now. There may be an initial release of wind.
Respect.
It's all right. Nobody heard that. Oh, nothing to be ashamed of. We all do it. We're all animals.
I can taste it.
And it just lands with such a thud. And I was bummed out, pun unintended, I was bummed out about it because I did like the reveal of a dragon. I did like seeing him learn the language and get it right away. I did like seeing him use his doctor, skills, and then it's undercut. And there seems to be, again, an era of film and movies and blockbuster filmmaking that seems to undercut the drama at every single turn. And that was
it's called the MCU
annoying.
Era.
Well, I guess, you're right? Yeah. And that's where he's learned this from. Right? Yeah. So it did come from there, and it's frustrating because you're like, okay, this is actually working in the context of the movie. And then it's just one large fart gag, and that is the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
The whole 90 minutes you're watching has led to this, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's unfortunate.
Yep. I was hoping you were going to mention that that's not just like some mid-movie scene. Like, no, that is like what we have to be holding to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the end.
Mm-hmm. Now that you can tell, and we have to get to that moment where they come back to Queen Victoria's chamber, and they tell us that Queen Victoria is like on death's door and she's going to die any second. And then they cut to Queen Victoria in the bed, and it is Jessie Buckley looking amazing, like perfect hair. She looks like so beautiful. She's just like asleep, and you're like, oh, okay. Like they couldn't even like make her look kind of sick, I guess. That would have been nice, but yeah.
It's a pretty wild 3 pictures that Robert Downey Jr. did. Like Endgame, Dolittle, Oppenheimer. Yeah. It's such a whiplash of 3 totally different things.
Well, and I think the reason this is the outlier is he's really good in Endgame. Obviously, he was good in all of those. He never phoned that in. No matter how long he played that character, he never phoned it in. In fact, I'd say he just kind of got better and better as he went along. Which is pretty impressive.
I agree.
And I actually agree with him when he says, I've seen him say it's in some of the quotes about this movie where he talks about how one of the things he was frustrated with coming off of the MCU was kind of how he felt like he'd done some of the best work of his career, but because it was in the MCU and because they're comic book movies, he felt like people didn't talk about it that way. And I agree with him. It's like there's some great acting in there. And obviously he's great in Oppenheimer, and it was like super exciting to see him play with like a director like Nolan in like this incredible biopic drama. He is just bad in this. That's the crazy. And there are actually sequences where I feel like you can feel his either embarrassment or frustration of knowing he's not getting it on screen. Yeah. He just does not bring his usual energy to this. And maybe that's what he was initially going for, but I almost feel like you can start to see it in the movie where it's like he came to this with this idea and then suddenly realized he feels lost here. I think that's what you're seeing on screen. It's he's just adrift. He doesn't have a handle on this character. He's trying to figure it out while they're making it. And you can see he's just I don't know. And there are just scenes where he seems embarrassed or seems checked out. There's a scene after they think they've failed and they're on the dock of this island nation and their boat has been destroyed. They don't think they're gonna be able to get back to Victoria to save her. And he's supposed to give this kind of not the joke is he doesn't, they think he's going to give a rousing speech, but he doesn't. He just kind of gives up. But that's kind of a funny idea, and it could have been played pretty well, but his performance is actually just so checked out that it the moment just doesn't work at all. I just felt I was almost watching it thinking that this might be the worst acting I've ever seen Robert Downey Jr. do. Mm-hmm. He's just he seems so lost here. I couldn't believe how bad he was in this.
You know what I noticed it the most was when he was opposite Michael Sheen.
Yeah.
You're so right. Michael Sheen was going for almost pure camp.
Let me float something by you that I thought about after I watched the movie. And not that this would ever happen because he's not a big enough star and they would never throw the kind of money to this. But imagine this movie, or just imagine a Dolittle movie with Michael Sheen as Dolittle playing it the way he plays Dr. Mudfly in this. Yeah. Right? That's the Dr. Dolittle I want to see. Like I said, he's doing this over the top comic character that obviously works for a villain, but actually that's the energy Dolittle needs too. And even the look of Michael Sheen is better, right, than what they're doing with Robert Downey Jr. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like the squirrel revenge joke.
That was kind of fun. I did laugh. Like
I
the
liked him.
slightest laugh I had was when he wakes up. Like, so to set the scene, like the movie begins with Stubbins, Tommy Stubbins, the young boy, in the woods with his family, and we learn that his family are like hunters, but he already like loves animals so much that he doesn't want to like kill any animals.
Yeah.
And he fires a shot, and his dad wants him to shoot at like a bird that's flying off, and instead he purposely misses, but doesn't realize that his bullet instead goes and hits the squirrel. And so the inciting incident then is that he takes the squirrel, and against his father's wishes, he runs off with the squirrel to try and get it help, and stumbles upon Dolittle's like estate and sees the sign that says Dolittle is a veterinarian who's there to help animals. So he breaks in because it's the gate's been sealed, but he breaks in to try and get Dolittle's help. And after he convinces Dolittle to like operate on the squirrel, the only slight laugh I had was when the squirrel wakes up and they do this like quick little montage of like cannons and like different war stuff. And there's even like a film break, which is like a good kind of like meta joke. And he just wakes up and goes like revenge. But you know what the problem is like they drop the joke too fast. Like,
well,
he doesn't,
he has the joke throughout the movie.
He does a little bit, but like not enough, right? Like, wouldn't it be funnier if like he was actually constantly trying to like kill Stubbins for the rest of the movie, but it just keeps like missing or something? That would be funnier than just like talking about it occasionally.
That's fair. That's fair, because like I did like when he was like, he's come to finish the job, and you know, when they're all cheering for the kid, he's like, "Why are you cheering for the kid that shot me?" I like that. I can't escape Star Trek, but he said a bunch of captain's logs. So yeah, that was. I thought you'd maybe like that one, but I did like the squirrel, and I do like Craig Robinson, and he's got comedic timing.
Well, that's kind of how I felt about the Dragonfly, right? Like for there's probably too much with the Dragonfly, but like for like 10 minutes, Jason Mantzoukas comes in, and Jason Mantzoukas is great, and he just has such a distinctive voice and such a distinctive just kind of comedic timing presence that like he can deliver the jokes in the ways some of these other performers can't. So like. That character pops like a little bit. I can't believe I just called a Dragonfly a character, but
yeah. yeah. I like Jason Mantzoukas until I don't. Does that make sense?
I guess I like him a lot, but I guess I know what you mean. I guess it can be a bit much if you're not all the way in on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. and he's got like sometimes he's got like almost too distinctive a voice. That now I just like I know I'm listening to Jason Mantzoukas, and you know, he's not one that has range.
No, I agree with that. Yeah,
not that you need range to play a Dragonfly.
Yes,
but it does just sound like one of those performances that I talked about. But
yeah,
that's
kind of how I felt about Kumail Nanjiani. Is like,
well, yeah.
I don't have a huge problem with Kumail Nanjiani, but again, it's kind of always just you're just hearing Kumail Nanjiani and like
What's frustrating, I think, about this too is that, we've had decades of Pixar movies and decades of like just really beautiful storytelling in the family-friendly genre,
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about Dr. Dolittle, him being a naturalist and his power being used to like better understand nature and like the history of the world, and you could have made an interesting Dolittle movie. Like you can. Like they did 15 or so books. Like there is something there to speak to our time. The same way Jimmy Cams talks about in Avatar. Like the destruction of our world and the preservation of animals, and like this could have had something to say, and quite easily. And you talked about the kid not wanting to kill animals. When you said that right away, I immediately flashed to one of my best friends. He's a vegan. And he would say to you, yeah, but I'm sure they ate animals during the movie too. And there's something that could be here. Like this could have been a pro-vegan movie. This could have been an environmentalist movie. It could have had something that would last and resonate to a young person's view. But instead, we get a really boring adventure to get a flower, and we perform an enema on a dragon.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like that sucks.
And I just can't help but keep coming back to, again, my first question of like, what's with the dead wife? Like, honestly, like for this,
I figured that was in the first book. I honestly just assumed that was like, they skipped to the second book. So
I did some research, and it doesn't look like he just ever had a wife in the books.
Oh, wow.
It was like, again, I'm just kind of like flummoxed as to like why that decision was made for this, because I don't feel like obviously they want one of the narrative thrusts this movie to be him kind of like resisting Stubbins' help until he accepts him. But like, you don't need a dead wife to justify that. You don't need a dead wife to justify, like a grumpier Dolittle that learns to be nicer as the movie goes along. Like, it's really strange just because I don't feel like there's anything that happens in the movie that like completely justifies him getting over like the death of his wife.
Yeah.
Just other than he just goes on this adventure and has a good time with all his characters, but like would that help him get over the death of his wife? I don't. My only theory is, let me float a theory to you. Because I also thought it was weird when I was watching this and I was wondering about this. I was like, isn't it strange that he like produced this movie with his wife, like as he does everything, and he's like, hey, let's have my character be like a widower. And then it clicked to me. I said, wait a minute. Did he have a dead wife in this? Was that like his audition to Christopher Nolan to get on Christopher Nolan's radar? Was that him like lighting the beacons of Gondor for Nolan to be like, hey, buddy, you love your guys with dead wives. I could do that too.
I think it just comes down to laziness, right? Like that's an obvious starting point for a dramatic character arc, right? But again, because you're Dr. Dolittle, a naturalist, it could have just been the devastation of the rainforest. And that's why he hates humans. He lives in England and he's noticing buildings are going up too fast and killing the vegetation and the animals and causing issues amongst the ecosystem. And that's why he hates humans so much. Because you're right, having a dead wife.
This is like a Padawan moment. I'm so proud of you because you don't like rewriting movies, but you just rewrote like a better version of Dolittle. So
no, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. One and done. but honestly though, that is it's right there. It's right there in the text. Like, I'm not even going crazy with a concept here. It makes no sense why his wife dying by natural causes, really, because it's a big wave that destroys her ship, why he hates humanity.
Yeah.
And I actually hated that he kept using the word human. That bugged me too. It should have been, this is going to sound really stupid, but it should have just been people.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I think word human and people are for him to hate humanity felt like he hates his species, and it just felt just way too hate-filled. I don't know. Something was very off-putting about him saying, no humans allowed. Yeah. He would put on his
out of
office.
Place and weird. The thing is, too, it seems to like set up like an obvious thing that they don't even follow through on, because where you like my wife and I, and just as we're told the whole story at the beginning. Like I said, Polly like fills us in on the backstory, and she explains to us how Dr. Dolittle was this like doctor, can speak to animals, and then he met this woman, this amazing woman who's a naturalist, and they fell in love, and then she took him on all her adventures, and they were taking care of the environment together, and then she goes off on the ship and dies. But like our obvious first thought was like, oh, he's going to find his wife alive during the course of this movie, because he never saw her die. Nobody saw her die. Right. Yeah. It's all just kind of like the idea that she went off on the ship and never came back. So the assumption is, of course, she's dead. And it seemed like, oh, well, like she's going to be like in the cave with the dragon at the end or something. Because I just didn't think that there was like, that's me just using logic and saying there's like no reason for him to have a dead wife and just have her be dead the whole movie. Right. And the fact that she like did not show up at the end, I was just like genuinely shocked, where I'm like, wow, they just really just wanted him to be a widower for like no reason. Just really, really strange. Unless they were saving that for like a sequel, but I don't know.
Especially since they hired an actress to do a flashback scene.
Yeah.
To almost hint to the audience that, oh, you're going to see this actress again. Yeah. So basic like filmmaking language. But no, you're right. It was very weird that she stayed dead.
What if like at the end instead of
was a little like, okay, well they stood by their convictions here. That it's like, okay, well but you're right, it doesn't make
what if instead though at the end, instead of pulling the bagpipes out of the dragon's butt, they pulled his wife out.
A rotting corpse.
Yeah. He's like, well, I guess that solves that. He's like, now I can finally be at peace. I just have the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this one was it just sucks. I stand by my first statement on it. It just sucks. And it doesn't even have glimpses of like greatness. You know what I mean? Like there's not even like a little. You blame Robert Downey Jr., right? Like on this one, like I don't hate him.
No,
but I blame him.
I just think it was a movie that was broken on conception and like made for like the wrong reasons. This was a business driven movie, not a. And look, there are other. We've talked about some of them, right? There are some movies that are made primarily for business reasons, but people still find their way into them and find like you connect to something with the material or decide to have fun with it. You know, I haven't even seen it, so like I might be wrong, and we probably will have to do an episode on it someday. But the recent release of Masters of the Universe, right? I'm sure that was a movie that was made entirely for cynical reasons, because obviously Amazon was like looking at the market a few years ago and saying, hey, people love like 80s nostalgia, people love IP, let's make Masters of the Universe. But then they went and got Travis Knight, who is a director who has only made good movies, you know, and from what I understand had like this like strong connection to the material from as a kid. And like by a lot of accounts I've heard that like a lot of people involved in the movie were like really trying to just make like a fun movie, and that happens sometimes, right? Like the filmmakers will get into the material and say like, okay, we know we're making a movie to make the studios and their shareholders happy, you know, but let's bring some like liveliness to it. Let's bring some fun to it. There are plenty of big, dumb summer blockbusters you and I both love. This one, though, you can only see the cynicism. You can only see like the business decisions, the behind the scenes accounting calculations, even the fact of what we're talking about, right? Where you see the structure of like what was meant to be a more dramatic movie, but then you can tell how late stage humor was added in. It's all there on the screen. You can see the missing sequences. You can see like the characters who were added in, the characters who were taken out, the reshuffling. It's all so clear that this was like this was just product. This is content, right? That's the best word for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's no artistry. There's no great visuals. There's no awesome sequence. You brought up Travis Knight, so like I'll just Transformers. You know, say what you want about Transformers. Some of those action sequences are jaw dropping.
Yeah.
You know, there's something behind them. There's an actual. Michael Bay has an eye.
Yeah, I was gonna say
distinct.
distinct, right? Say what you will about Transformers. Michael Bay has a vision, you know,
sure.
and like you can hate that vision, but it's a fucking vision.
But it's his vision,
yes.
quintessentially.
Yeah.
So yes, 100%. In here, do I think Stephen Gaghan had did he have any reason to make this his own? No, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, again, after you said, coming off of movies like Syriana and Traffic, to make this just feels like such a blip on everybody's radar. You know what I mean? Like, everybody involved with this was just a blip. And maybe that's a good thing, because it didn't really hurt anybody's career.
No.
Maybe that is the best thing that can be said about this movie, is that it was a blip. It just kind of happened, and we've moved on. And, yeah.
Well, then let's move on to the big question. Chris, do you think this deserves sequels?
No. But I think the Dolittle character is something that I would like to see again. You know what I mean?
And
Like
that's what I said at the beginning, right? I don't think the character's gone forever. And I said, and to the point you made, like, yes, you're right that I don't think anybody will try to make a big blockbuster movie again anytime soon.
Yeah.
But like a Dolittle cartoon or animated series or show or something,
Sure.
it's just too good of an idea. We just hope they learned the lessons from this one and say like, let's try and be a little comedy forward from the beginning, or let's actually try to find the right performer. Let's not overly humanize the animals. Everything we kind of got to in this. Let's not just kill his wife for no reason at the start.
No, totally. So like, this didn't hurt the character, I think, at all, in my opinion. No. Like I said, everybody was kind of unscathed by this and course corrected pretty quick. Like Robert Downey Jr. course corrected really fast, going over to Oppenheimer, and now more paycheck in the MCU. But we'll see. Maybe he's fan. And I know you're the cynic. Maybe he's gonna blow you away as Dr. Doom, another doctor. By the way,
it's not even like I kind of don't. I mean, I just kind of doubt it. My bigger question is, the real test is like.
Hold on. Before you say that, do you think you're gonna get more Dolittle RDJ, or are we gonna get more Tony Stark RDJ in?
Ooh, I'm sure the answer is somewhere in the middle, but I'm sure it'll be more towards Tony Stark. I don't believe I'll ever see a performance as bad as this again from him, because as I said, I really feel like I'm sure he is excited to be back playing with his friends.
Sure.
and getting a huge paycheck, and looking at it as a challenge. Like you said, I do agree that, like, even though I think it's cynical, and even though I don't love the idea, and even though I would have much rather see an actual, new Doctor Doom that's played by a different performer, well, whatever, 100 different things, right? At the same time, I'm sure you're right that he sees it as a challenge to say, hey, how can I make this different than Stark in a way that's kind of interesting? So, like, yes, I think, as I said, this way I watch him, and I think I see on screen him going like, uh-oh, I made a mistake,
What
so
if he does a Latvian accent?
What is that?
Well, that's what we're going to find out.
What if it's just Welsh? Just hasn't learned. No, but I think, like, the bigger question is, what does he do after Doomsday? Because obviously people like me, I think their concern was after Oppenheimer and him then coming out as Dr. Doom, it's like, oh, really, just running right back to it? But if he, like, follows up Doomsday with, like, another, like, cool drama or something, then you'll go, okay, maybe he is, like, actually trying to find a balance now.
Sure.
I think the concern is, like, did he just get his Oscar and decide, like, all right, cool, I did it, I proved myself, peace out, I'm just going back to MCU forever? Like, that's what I'm, like, worried about.
Right.
Right. So, yeah.
No, that's fair. That's a fair worry, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got to say about Dolittle. I mean, we talked actually a lot about Dolittle here. And that was June, is what the doctor ordered, right? That's our theme month?
Yep, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was. So go back and listen to Dr. Detroit, Dr. Giggles. You don't have to watch Dolittle. But thank you for listening to this. But we're moving on.
I know. Exciting.
It's summertime, baby.
Yeah.
And, we've been doing this podcast for going on 6 years now. Never missed a date, by the way. I love saying every 2 weeks for almost 6 years. We've always put out content. Pretty crazy. But every summer, newcomers, we do a fun little experiment here. We call it Summer Surprise. So, Trev keeps track of, like, all the franchise non-starters through his Letterboxd account. So go onto your podcast app. You'll see our links to our accounts. You can go see what we watch and keep up to date on stuff. But he has a list made for failure to franchise movies that we will or have covered on this podcast before. So every year I go over the list and I'm shocked at some additions. So what we do is we put all of them into a randomizer. Yeah. So a generator. So I have them all here, and I'll click randomize, and, like, they'll set the stage of the next 4 episodes of Failure to Franchise that we're going to do. So we leave it up to fate.
Yes.
Trev, first and foremost, though, and to the listeners, whatever we get, there might be so many shocks to even me, because I trust Trev. Of course I do. He's my co-host. He's my partner in crime. I get it. Like, yeah, I love him. But I looked over the list with the additions he's made in the last year that I haven't looked at this list before. And he's got some splaining to do.
Are there any, like, before we even get to it, are there any in particular you wanted to, like, raise now in the moment? Or, like...
There's too many.
Okay.
There's too many. So I have them all here. And
just trust me when I say anything that was added was because I saw somebody somewhere say that there was, like, intention for, like, another one, or it was like clearly, like, a character where it's like, well, you're not just trying to make one of those, right?
I'm just saying, I don't want the listeners getting mad at me saying, oh, by the way, well, they were never going to make sequels for that one. Well, you know what, listeners, the blame is Trev. Okay.
Look, they were never going to make a Dr. Detroit sequel, but don't tell that to Dan Aykroyd, right? So sometimes all it takes is one person being involved thinking they're making a franchise starter.
For sure.
And that's good enough for me, right? So,
for sure.
Yeah.
We will see if it's good enough for me. Okay, so I have them all here. Okay, so the first episode of Summer Surprise 2026 will be July 14th, and we're looking at Action Jackson.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
I love when I hear the excitement in your voice.
Well, yeah, it's, why I got excited, it's because it's kind of like we just loved doing, like, the canon series, and I just feel like even though it's not necessarily a canon movie, it just feels like we're going back to, like, the well of, like, fun, like, 80s action, Sure. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. July 28th, we're looking at Are they just all picking the ones that you threw in last second? Car 54, where are you?
All right. A movie, I'm just going to say it now. I could have said this for the episode. A movie I saw in the theater.
Wow, okay.
Based on a classic sitcom, for the record. So, one of those.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you answered my question on that one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. August 11th, we're looking at The Green Hornet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wow. Okay. All right. Speaking of Seth Rogen.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that's kind of crazy. Okay. All right. And then August 25th, to round out Summer Surprise 2026, we're looking at... This is a controversial one.
Okay.
World War Z.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean...
Controversial
because apparently they're working on a new one now, but...
Yeah, and they keep saying it every couple of years, but it's cool that we're talking about Brad Pitt right before his Fincher movie's coming out.
Yeah,
great timing actually.
Yeah, and technically we'll be talking about Fincher too, because he's the guy who tried to make World War Z 2 for a long time.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, Summer Surprise 2026
worked out pretty well, I'd say. Yeah,
I think so too. But yeah, Action Jackson, Car 54, Where Are You, The Green Hornet, World War Z. That's an interesting crop of movies.
Yeah, and nothing like we didn't get like the YA bomb this time, nothing we're like dreading. So,
like
which only means that all those
kids.
which only means that all those YA movies keep getting put off, and like ultimately like the last 2 years of this show will just be us having to do all the remaining YA movies. But
oh my god, could you imagine? Oh yeah, we're gonna have a theme year.
Yeah,
versus a theme month. But yeah, that's very cool. Okay, awesome. Yeah. All right. I'm into that. So follow along at F2F Pod. That's at F2, the number 2 F Pod on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. A star rating would be great. Rate, review, whatever you do. Join the tribe, hit that subscribe. Pretty sure that's all I say. But yeah, Summer Surprise is a lot of fun. So I think it's going to be very interesting as usual. So I think we look forward to it every year. So yeah, stick around.
Great. Oh, that's like sorry. I just need to tell you really quickly. We were Liz and I were watching like a shitty werewolf movie yesterday that we bought at a thrift store, like an old 70s TV movie about werewolves.
Okay.
And I told Liz afterwards I felt like she didn't give me enough like credit for this in the moment. But it's like a murder mystery movie. Like you as the audience know it's a werewolf, but you're watching like the characters figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this one guy locked up, and the werewolf comes to the jail and like tears the bars off the jail to kill him. And then so the cops show up afterwards, and they're like trying to figure out they're like what, because they still think it's like a man that's doing this, right? Mm-hmm. And the sheriff is like, I don't know what kind of strength it takes. Like he ripped this off with his bare hands, and I said no, with his wolf hands. And I've never been more proud of myself.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. She divorced you?
Yeah, it's paperwork has been filed.